I found the word scandal on a 12th grade vocabulary list on the internet. A scandal is a disgraceful event or nasty gossip about someone's private life. It's an action or event that causes a public feeling of shock and strong moral disapproval. Most scandals are based on events that actually occur, but some are simply not true. Even though scandal is a 12th grade vocab word, most of us began experiencing scandals as early as elementary school. In the 2nd grade, I was the victim of a scandal when Alan put an open bottle of glue on my chair right before I sat down. I got glue all over the seat of my pants. Alan got his name on the board for this scandalous and disgraceful event. In the 9th grade, our geometry teacher got divorced from her husband, and our history teacher got divorced from his wife, and suddenly, our geometry teacher and our history teacher got remarried to one another. It was scandalous. Shonda Rhimes created a political thriller television show named Scandal, which aired for 7 seasons and was about a crisis management firm in Washington, D.C. I guess they have a lot of crises that need to be managed there. There's also an Oklahoma LGBTQ YouTube series called Scandalous Tales. It was created by Alexandria Carr, who said that growing up here, she didn't have an outlet to deal with her depression or learn about her sexuality because no one on TV seemed to face her same struggles. So, she created a web series which dealt with these things. The season 1 finale got over 28,000 views online. That's kind of scandalous for Oklahoma. Celebrity scandals were the bread and butter of the tabloid magazines which my family would read and pass around. Every time I went to my aunt's house, my parents would bring copies of the National Enquirer and Star. In exchange, we'd be given In Touch Weekly or a recent copy of Globe magazine. National scandals, like Watergate and the Iran-Contra, have been recorded in high school history books. Others, like the Tulsa Greenwood Race Massacre and the real story behind the Oklahoma Land Run, have been left out of the history books. Maybe because when they occurred, the white majority didn't consider the events to be disgraceful, nor did they morally disapprove. I can't even begin to imagine which scandals will be recorded when the history books are written regarding these last few years. Honestly, there have been so many scandals that I've already forgotten many of them. I know a scandal is supposed to cause a feeling of shock, but I think I've become numb to public scandal at this point. Numb is how I feel about public scandals. But when they emerge in your own life story, numbness is not the word that comes to mind. It's more like panic, anxiety, shame, and despair. This week I've been thinking about particular scandals which at one time crushed individuals and their families or communities, but now, years later, have miraculously produced Advent-like themes: hope, peace, love, and joy. For example, the scandal that can occur when someone in a family comes out as LGBTQ. If the family has been falsely taught by their religious community that queer folk are incompatible with their faith tradition, then such a scandal begins with fear, anger, and shock. So many of these stories include ultimatums or disownment of children by their parents. The CSU youth who reside in our church building could speak to this. But the beginning chapters of a scandal, of a person's private pain suddenly spotlighted for public view, is never the last chapter. Sometimes a scandal will unlock secrets that needed to see the light of day. Truth-telling can bring new life and growth and transformation, healing, freedom, and positive change. I can't help but think about the hope and peace and love and joy that grew out of one family story here in Oklahoma City. The tale of a teenage boy coming out to his Christian mother, who had been taught by her church that queer folk weren't right but were wrong. The story of Sarah and Parker Cunningham of Free Mom Hugs. A story of scandal breaking open a mother's heart so wide that after fear and trembling, after education and experience, she in turn gathered other mothers under her wing and empowered them to embrace and welcome all kinds of queer kids who have been scarred by the scandal of disownment. Scandal is a common storyline in human history, and thus in the Bible. Adam and Eve ate the apple. It was scandalous. David slept with Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. It was scandalous. The Israelites worshipped a golden calf. Scandalous. The story of Jesus' birth was steeped in scandal. Mary was not yet wed, and yet an angel of the Lord appeared to her and revealed that she was already pregnant. A scandal like this had the capability to ruin a girl, her reputation, her livelihood, her future, her family. Miraculous birth was not unheard of among our biblical beloveds. Many women bore children miraculously: Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Hannah, Elizabeth. But their miraculous births were due to barrenness, the biblical word for infertility. Mary's miraculous pregnancy was not due to infertility. It was miraculous because she was an unwed virgin teenager. Upon arriving, the angel said to Mary, "Rejoice, highly favored one. God is with you. Blessed are you among women." Mary was deeply troubled by these words. Who wouldn't be? It's not like she auditioned for or was awaiting a callback for this particular role. The angel went on to say to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and bear a son and give him the name Jesus, deliverance." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I have never been with a man?" The angel answered her, "Nothing is impossible with God." In the Gospel of Matthew, we hear Joseph's reaction to this scandal. When he learned that his fiancée was pregnant and yet knew that the baby could not be his, Joseph planned to quietly break up with Mary, not to shout it from a rooftop or anything. But an angel of the Lord appeared to him and convinced Joseph to stick it out, to live through the scandal, because something special was emerging, and Joseph had an important part to play as well. There's more to this scandal besides an unwed teenage pregnancy. It is a scandal that God would choose to incarnate in the most vulnerable way possible, as a baby. Tender flesh and blood, susceptible to disease, betrayal, heartbreak, persecution, and a scandalous death. God is born in the person of Jesus of Nazareth, and God's Spirit is born in our personal lives and storylines again and again, often through scandalous, vulnerable events. Tonight is the longest night of the year, and arguably the most difficult calendar year that many of us have ever lived through. Tomorrow, the winter solstice marks the darkest day, a day with the fewest hours of light and the official beginning of winter. Even though winter is only beginning, immediately the days will become longer, the nights will become shorter as spring sits hopeful on the horizon. We have been living through scandal, but our ancient scriptures teach us that hope, peace, love, joy, all of these can emerge from within the most scandalous of tales. Just ask Mary. She worried that her scandalous pregnancy would ruin her, and yet this story was only her beginning. It turns out that God is pretty good at composting and transforming scandal. This awesome story of the birth of Christ, the incarnation of God, was not left out of the history books. It is remembered and retold every year, reminding us of what the angel whispered into Mary's ear. Nothing is impossible with God. Amen.